Hello, everybody. Welcome to Feedback for the week of April 17th. Today, we're going to talk about used game sales. And if you don't like used games, we're going to get to the things you do like, I promise, probably at some point. Nicole, hello.
Hello.
10 words or less. What are you excited about?
Thanks for asking.
You're very welcome.
I'm reading Dance with Dragons right now. So.
Yay,
Yeah.
Nicole, Song of Ice and
Yeah.
Fire.
Read.
Yay, literacy as well. Steve Johnson, 10 words or less.
I'm only excited about Bioshock Infinite. It's all I can think about.
It's probably more than 10, but you know what? We haven't really adhered
Nah,
to
that's
that
not
whole
our thing.
thing.
Not going to count.
Yeah.
It's not math back.
What are you excited about?
Bioshock Infinite.
But why?
It's all I can think about.
Why?
Because have
You
you
have
seen
children.
the
That's all.
videos?
Literally, all you can think about is Bioshock. You have
College.
children.
I mean, I'm just trying to keep it to the subject of video games. I'm excited to watch my son grow up. Something that makes me
Lame.
excited. Oh god. Sorry. I mean, and Bioshock Infinite.
If you had to choose between your son's development as a human being or Bioshock Infinite, what would you pick?
That is a tough choice, but ultimately, I think I would have to choose my son's development. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I was about to say, thank God we have an
We have to
age
kick him
gate
out.
on this video, because if that kid watches this,
It would be
Nope.
bad time.
yeah, just 12-year-old prostitute. I see the roadies going down right now because of his
Oh,
father.
no.
Jake, 10 words or less. How are you a better father than Steve Johnson?
No prostitute children, for one. And I'm excited about Dishonored. Actually, we just saw a new trailer today. Looks like this weird mashup of Bioshock meets Thief meets Half-Life 2. Everything that I
Needs the color
love.
brown.
It is
Again,
very brown.
everything I love
Yeah.
smashed together. So.
I love that the prisoner, and again, goes back to what you're reading right now, but clearly they drew inspiration from Jamie Lannister, right? Like when he's sitting in the prison, he's got the beard, and like that's Jamie
Different
Lannister
hair a
character.
little
a little
bit.
bit. He
but-
actually looks like Sawyer from Lost, which I thought
Which
I was
looks
hoping
like Jamie
for.
Lannister.
Good call.
too.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about that as well. I mean, the trailer I think went live. If this is airs on Wednesday, went live yesterday. Then right, and I like that. Bethesda. I'm pretty excited. It's going to be linear to an extent. I feel like that's going to be the gameplay, and I'm totally okay with that.
It's like sandbox
Yeah.
and linear.
Yeah,
So-
Somehow.
it's a hybrid,
Yeah.
man.
Well, I mean, so was Red Dead, I
Right.
guess.
Yeah.
Focus.
There was a
Focus
story
still
and a
forward.
thread
An
line.
assassin
Yes.
thing? Oh
Yeah,
my God,
yeah.
that's so rad.
Yeah.
Revolutionary, really.
That leads me to my answer, which is I'm excited about E3, and
No.
here's why. Because I feel like, although there is the chance that we're going to hear about some hardware outside of the Wii U, and I really hope that Microsoft and Sony are just going to be like, you know what, F it. We're going to surprise everybody and talk about our hardware. But if they don't talk about hardware, I still feel like we're going to hear about some awesome software. I think we're going to see more of Dishonored and just a lot of other cool stuff. I think this E3 is going to be really software heavy, and for us as people that get to, we're doing however many 20 hours, or that's a lot of demos on stage. But I think it's gonna be a cool E3 this year.
It better be, because if they don't show off hardware, this is the last year for this software.
Right.
For these consoles. I think that these consoles' days are numbered. No one can argue that. So if they're going to go out, they should go out really strong.
Well, the end of a cycle is always like when you get the biggest
Yeah.
and best. So
I think-
we'll see.
But it is
Nintendo's
when your
gonna
wife finally
surprise
starts
everybody.
cheering up, as we all know, at the end of
At
the
the end
cycle.
of the cycle?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know about that.
Mary Jo,
Yeah,
you have
wow.
ovaries, you understand.
yeah, well, kind of.
The ladies know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Do you guys also think, before we get into the actual topic of used game sales, do you guys also think that this is probably going to be a really big year for indie games at E3? I feel like this is kind of a year where they're going to have a really big presence,
The
right?
year when indie games broke. kind of
Maybe,
thing, yeah.
right? Where
I
they,
can see
where they
that.
go mainstream.
There's already a ton of indie games. We just came back from PAX East. And
Yeah.
the indie games are, everyone's talking about Fez, everyone's talking about Awesome Knots. Like, indie games are already what everyone's talking about right now.
Right. So I feel like they're not going to be buried in the corner of the convention center. I feel like we're going to see some prime placement of these games
I agree.
Yeah.
as well. Hell, we might even demo some on stage,
Oh,
which is
Jesus
something if
Christ.
you talked about 2 or 3 years ago, we'd be like, there's
Yeah,
no
like
way.
demoing an indie. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It really has changed so much in just a couple of years. The indie
Yeah.
game scene has just
blown up.
blown up.
Blowing
You know what?
up.
I blame Minecraft, the greatest of all.
It's your
games.
fault.
Yeah.
I know.
It's
I
your
hate
fault,
you,
Steve.
Lego
I know.
and Zelda, kind of. All right, so let's talk about used games. Used games, obviously, publishers hate them because they don't make any money off used games, whereas places like GameStop make a ton of profit off of that. I want to get into what the developer said first. Nicole, you got a couple great quotes from, some pretty high up there developers about how little they like this situation.
Yeah, so first up, we have Dennis Dyack, who says he made a bunch of statements about how used games are hurting the industry, and primarily he says if used games continue the way that they are, it's going to cannibalize, and there's not going to be an industry. And he's basically saying that used games are going to be the downfall of all gaming in general, and it's just, the world's going to end. the game of
That may
apocalypse.
be
seems
a
like a logical conclusion, I
little
think.
bold
Yeah.
of a statement.
It's a little dramatic, but it's Dennis Dyack, so drama.
Triple D.
And then there was also a quote from Richard Brown, who used to be at Eidos and used to be at THQ, and he says that take a look at the most recent Ninja Gaiden game. Why does multiplayer mode exist? What effect did having to build it have on the single player experience? There is no reason for the multiplayer game to exist. It makes no sense. And his point is developers are tacking on multiplayer for online passes, and it's hurting the single player experience. And he would argue that is there a reason? Absolutely not. It's general that they're getting poorer single player game, but again, that's the tip of the iceberg. So he's being dramatic as well, saying single player is going to die because of used games.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a lot of different things we can talk about here. The first one I want to address, though, really is, and Steve, we'll start with you. Why do you think the rev share is the way it is between a place like GameStop and developer? I mean, why does at what point during that conversation did our publishers go, you know what? It's all good. We'll make our money, the first time we sell the game. Then you guys do whatever you want after that. Like, I feel like there should have been some sort of oversight in that conversation or foresight to lead to this conversation
Like
right
some
here.
sort of agreement.
Yeah, like, there's
retailers
probably a
and
good chance people are
publishers.
going to return this at some point. So if you resell it, we want like $1, like something, any sort of.
I think that retailers have a certain amount of clout in these kinds of discussions now, because retail has been the way people buy everything. So you can't alienate retailers, because then, okay, we won't stock your games. How's that? And then since, what did you say, that 25% of game sales are from GameStop itself?
Yeah, I think it's around 20, but yeah.
You
just
can't
GameStop.
just cut off 20% of your sales, so they don't have a lot of leverage. But I think if they did have more leverage, I think if GameStop needed publishers and publishers didn't need GameStop, I think you would see those kind of agreements.
Because GameStop
So-
could totally live without new games. Like, let's just say that publishers refuse to sell to them. They could continue to exist off of used games.
Absolutely, 100%.
Easily. And so I don't think they are dependent on publishers.
Right. Now, we saw this years ago. I mean, the music industry is a great example. I mean, really, the games industry should be looking at something like the music industry, where 10 years ago, you had to have a relationship with Walmart because you needed your stand-up in the front of Walmart when you walked in, or Garth Brooks wasn't going to sell his Chris Gaines album. You know what I mean? Like, he needed to have Walmart be in his pocket. And what we've seen with the advent of iTunes and digital distribution is that they don't give a
Sucks.
right?
I know Middle America is going to say we absolutely do, but the fact of the matter is plenty of people move their content online without needing any sort of retailer. So, Jake, do you see, the fact that digital distribution in the games industry is getting so much more prevalent? Do you see that changing the way that people think about needing retailers?
I mean, for sure. I mean, that's kind of the push, and that's what everyone's been talking about for years. The popularity of Steam and those kinds of services prove that that's a viable way to go. I think the idea of like the leveraging of like what the publishers versus a GameStop kind of thing. I think what we're seeing, and publishers are doing this with the online pass, is that they're trying to somehow try to make money on the used games at some point, because they sell the online pass after, like, you can buy it for $10 or whatever. Like, that's their little that's the thing that they forgot to work out before.
Right.
So now they're kind of scrambling for that. And so that's
Took a while.
basically, that's like EA's used game model at this point. Like, you can buy a used game from EA for $10. It's essentially what the online pass is. The only problem is that GameStop charges $45 for the used game. So you're actually, plus the online pass, you're paying more for it than a real game. But I think like that model with the online, like the streaming services and the online pass, like it's this weird mix of like, that's what they're trying to like work with at this point.
And I don't think publishers are interested in reevaluating their relationship with GameStop. I mean, how many games that have been announced in the past month have a GameStop pre-order exclusive?
Right.
Like, they are making
them.
deals
Well, that's the thing
with
too. That's what we were
GameStop
talking about.
immediately.
Like, they just complain,
They
like, oh, they
complain,
make so much money.
and then they're
But
like,
then,
here,
here's all the
here's an
exclusive.
exclusive
There's
gun.
probably a commercial on TV right now for
Yeah.
GameStop for a prototype or something.
Yeah. So
So-
it's like they whine, and yet they give GameStop all the exclusives anyway. So they're encouraging people to go to those stores.
Right.
So it's definitely a mixed message. Basically, it's just GameStop. What GameStop is doing is fine. What the publishers are doing is fine. It's the consumer who buys the used game that's doing something wrong. That's
Yeah.
the message I'm hearing from these guys.
Yeah, and do you
I
think
just
that
read this great article, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but and it was about book publishing, and it pointed out in one sentence this entire discussion, which was that publishing used to be an industry, and now it is a button. Now it is a button that you hit on your blog that says publish, and the same thing's going to happen to games. I don't know that game publishers are going to have the same sort of overarching power
Right.
that they have now in 10 years when, hey, I can just hit a button. And
Well,
I
you might also
distribute
see
my
like
game.
publishers end up being like the store. I mean, that's like the EA store or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
or
that would be the
100%.
that would
Yeah,
be the
I mean,
GameStop.
I
Steam.
agree. To your point, I feel like, especially when you see games like, I mean, we just watched Indie Game the movie last week. If you have, it's going to be in your city. Please go and support it because it's absolutely amazing. And G4 had nothing to do with it, so it's not like I'm trying to incentivize you guys because we're going to get a buck off of that. But you know, something like Super Meat Boy, where these two dudes can develop this, and then you know, all they got to do is dump it on Xbox Live, and now they've made millions of dollars. I actually see a world where publishers don't even need to exist, and developers just. Like somebody like Bethesda, the fact that they can not only develop but also self-publish says a lot about where I think companies are moving, right? And I mean, I feel like these deals though with publishers and GameStop like that, those deals were struck years ago. These developers now, are they going to need publishers in 10 years? I mean, I'm just speculating here, but
marketing budget.
Yeah.
well, maybe,
Well, I mean,
but like you
also-
look at like something like Blacklight Tango Down, Blacklight Retribution. Like, yes, it does not have the cinematic single-player campaign of a Call of Duty, but the multiplayer is pretty similar to what you're experiencing in those games. And those are dudes doing it on their own.
And
A
that's
team
free
of
to
they
play?
don't. Yeah, and they don't need. I mean, they do charge microtransaction. I believe Tango Down was $15, but I think Retribution is free. I mean, these are just like it's not a studio of 700 people like spread out around the world developing this game. It's just a couple
Yeah.
guys.
Well, I think that's why the Kickstarter thing is like such a hot topic right now because
Yeah.
that just proves that you can raise $3 million to make a game right now. Like
But didn't even
enough
Tim
people.
Schafer say that he's still going to seek out a publisher?
I mean, I feel like, guys like Tim Schafer, I don't want to say they're beholden to that model, but I feel like, actually, it's weird that he said that because I feel like he got so burnt by EA with the
Brutal Legend.
Brutal Legend.
yeah, with
And
Brutal Legend, right?
Activision?
I mean, he wasn't very happy with the marketing of that game, and
But he seems to be happy with Microsoft in his past few games.
right, but Microsoft is like a hardware provider, so maybe we see. I don't know. I'm just like all over the place here in my brain, but I feel like maybe they strike deals with content providers, with the Steam box or on Live, where they just eliminate the publisher altogether. And I think marketing, to your point, I don't think people need marketing as much as they used to because the internet. All you need is one person blogging about it, and then that one person tweets it, and then that one. It's different than it was 5 years ago, where you need a television space. It means terrible things for us as a network. It really does. But like, I don't think TV marketing. It's still very
I
important.
don't know. I don't know that it means terrible things for us because I think when you get all these people putting out content, what you need is filters. Like you need somebody who says this is good, this is good, this is crap, this is crap. So you need the people you need the gatekeepers basically, and like the internet can work to a certain extent, but on the other hand, sometimes it's good to have a filter, like somebody who does that, and that's what they
And
do.
in order to get your information to blogs, you need a PR person who's writing press releases, and you need a cinematic trailer made by somebody like Blur, and you're going to need millions of dollars. And so I think publishers are important because they're their money. They're a lot of money that can help you put your game in front of a lot of people.
Unless
so-
you're Minecraft.
Well, Minecraft's a very different case, and it worked out for them. I mean, they're on Xbox Live now, which is Microsoft is pushing them.
Right.
So I mean, publishers, I still think that they're going to have a place for a long time still.
I agree that they are relevant now, but I just have to believe that the next generation of consoles is really going to embrace digital distribution. I just don't think publishing is going to be nearly as important as it is.
What's crazy
now.
is like right now at this moment in gaming, we're like surfing on the wave of like the next thing is happening partially, but the old thing is still happening too. And like how it's going to shake out, nobody knows. It's so cool. Like it's so cool that there's all these different
I
models.
feel like
and
we
different
do
ways.
know. I feel like we know digital distribution is going to happen. It's just like what needs to happen for everyone to accept that. What needs to happen for people to stop wanting a tangible disc. And I think it needs to be instant. Downloads need to be faster. They need to be more reliable, and you need to be able to redeem them on multiple consoles.
Well, I think, but then that also is like getting back to like the used game thing. Like, how do you, like, that basically eliminates all used games because if everything's digital, there's
Yeah,
no, you
it
can't
does.
like
But then it ups
re-digi-
piracy.
Like, so
So-
I mean,
But is that sad though? I mean, that's like it makes me sad to think of a world where I can't finish a game and give it to my friends. I know it's like totally selfish, but that's what I do with games, and I have forever and ever. Is I finish a game, I give it to my friend. He finishes the game, he gives it to me. It's and sales or not sales, like whether I can make a little money off it doesn't really matter to me. I just like that.
well, I mean, I think that's like
it's
it's
such a
basically
bummer that-
if there was no GameStop and you just had somehow you bought a game then the online pass is basically the $15 for the used game. So as you're paying $15 for games, essentially, like when you give it to somebody, they have to buy the pass. So that. There's no like additional cost. Like you don't have to go to a GameStop and pay $35 plus the online pass. It's just the online pass is the price of used games now, which it would change the
assuming
dynamic
somebody
at all.
gives you the game, you have to purchase
But that's
it.
the thing. Like, where would you? Well, so now you have a game. Like, what would you do with it? You'd only be able to give it to somebody you know.
Right.
Like, there has to be. I don't know, it's a weird thing.
I was reading that 26 million gamers sell used games, and of those 26 million people, 16 million sell those used games for credit and buy new games only. So I mean, GameStop. I mean, they're new games are still being purchased,
Right.
even if you're exchanging your old games. And the survey from 2008 also said, "What's the number one reason you sell used games?" And it's because they're not good. So
Yeah.
you why shouldn't you?
I agree.
take
I mean,
them back?
I've been trading in new games for years and years and years, and I've never taken cash. I've always taken store credit. Part of the reason is that my very successful Quaalude side business provides me with enough revenue to where I don't have to take cash for these games. But you're very right. I rarely leave the store without something else. But
And is it sometimes something that you wouldn't have tried anyway? Like my brother just bought Warriors Oichi 3. Like we would never have paid $60 for that.
yeah, I don't know if I would have
But
paid a used game price for that either.
It was
then.
totally worth like $17.
But I to Jake's point, and we talked about this yesterday in the meeting. And to you too. What if what if you were able to authorize like X amount of computers, or X amount of much like iTunes or Kindles now. Like Jessica and I have Kindles, and you can authorize up to 4, so we can share our books. I think that would solve maybe a lot of problems if you're able to lend them to,
like 4 or 5 friends, and
Yeah.
then you could deauthorize them as
Sure.
that would be
PS3
cool.
does that. They used to have, if you downloaded a game from the PSN, I believe you used to have 4,
Yeah, I remember we did a
Yeah.
feedback about it. Right? It was like
And
3 or
then
4,
they
and then like
cut
a
it
like a
down to
PSP
2.
as well, and
and it's been cut.
yeah.
So now you can only redeem it on 2 consoles.
Which is still, I mean, that's still that is still, you do have the ability to give that game to
Yeah, but I
someone
mean,
else for free.
Technically, I have 3 Xboxes in my house.
But that's a first world problem right there.
Yeah,
You know
well,
what I mean?
it's also
That's just straight up,
I
you know.
live with a lot of people.
Is it
What
hard
do
to
I
sit
do
down?
with them all?
Do you have so much money in your wallet that you're unbalanced at this
I live
moment?
with my parents, so
Your parents are rich. You have 3 Xboxes.
One of them is slim, one of them is black, and one of them is beige.
It's so hard. It's like
I
because the
don't know
one
which
has a
to
320 gig hard drive, but the other one's
Oh.
just the arcade one. I can't save many games on it, and a lot of times, but that one's in the living room, and I don't really know where to play my game sometimes.
well, because the 250 gig is my room, and then the 20 gig is in my
Yeah,
parents' room, and then there's
naturally.
the 100 gig or 120 gig downstairs.
No, that's good.
You're balling.
You
man.
really
That's-
are. You really.
I live at home with my parents.
It's true. It's very true.
Truly
man.
balling.
All right,
So-
Balling.
let's get back on task here. Let's actually ask a fan feedback question. This is from Treppy. On the subject of used games, what do you think of game rentals? Do you think with how hard publishers are pushing to get rid of used game sales, will rental services be doomed as well? I'm assuming they're probably not talking about GameFly here. Like, are we? Do you
they
think they're
could.
talking about maybe just
It
going
still
to a
applies
store?
to GameFly or a store, I think.
I mean, if you
When's
get
the
a
last time you
game-
went to a store to rent a game? not a joke.
no.
I mean, when can you think of the last time with GameFly and the fact that you're
Maybe-
gainfully employed and you're incredibly wealthy? When's the last time you went to a store to
Two-
actually rent a
Probably
game?
2.5 years ago when there was still a Blockbuster in my neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah, back when I played N64 games, like that's how long ago it was. That's when I went to Blockbuster regularly.
That wasn't 2.5 years ago.
No, that was a long time
Yeah.
ago. That was when I regularly went to a Blockbuster to rent games.
Now, have you had a GameFly subscription as well during
Uh-huh.
that time? Yeah, you still went to the store.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. I want things right now, which is why I go to GameStop still.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes I don't want to click, buy on Amazon. 2-day shipping is not fast enough.
I think
Yeah.
that could be a thing
Yeah.
too. Like basically,
I've-
the rental services being digital, like digital distribution rental services,
Like on live.
like on live or something
Yeah.
like that.
But the thing about renting games is like, don't you find like it's not like a movie where you rent it and you watch it for a couple of hours and then you send it back? Like I play a game for a long time, and I would keep it for a month.
Yeah, GameFly
Yeah.
loves you. You're the customer that
I know,
This
exactly.
dude's going to give us $9 a month, and he's going to keep Skyrim for 7 months.
That's exactly what I would do if I had that service. I don't, but if I
But
if
then
I
what
had a rental
happens if
service,
you buy a game, if you rent a game from GameFly that has an online pass?
you got to pay for the online pass.
So after you
I
paid for your
believe.
rental
Is that what
subscription,
happens?
I mean,
I don't know
have
the
to
answer
I
to
don't
assume.
know how else it could work.
Yeah, I guess you'd have to.
Yeah.
That sucks.
right.
That's a really interesting point that you bring up, is GameFly having to strike deals with these publishers and developers. I'm sure in the comments you guys will clarify for us in angry language, but that we don't know. But that's a very interesting point.
And they have to be clear about it because just last week, a class action lawsuit was passed in California changing the way GameStop promotes their used games and saying that they have to be very clear when someone buys a game, they do not have access to the online pass. They do not have access to the day one DLC that it says in the packaging you do have because it's been redeemed. And a lot of people were concerned that GameStop was inflating prices because people assumed they were getting all the content and then they would take their $45 game home and then go buy $15 of content. So that law has been passed, making it very clear to customers what they're getting. I'd have to assume that GameFly has to make their customers equally aware.
Right. And no, Steven, as a parent, and I know you do
Yes.
work in the industry, but do you feel like I feel like this is something that we are aware of because we do work in this industry, but do you think that that's really made clear to the general parent that's going out to keep going back to the R Zone because it's my favorite job of all time, but you think the mom that goes to the R Zone to buy a game is, well, they don't sell used games. Mom that goes to a GameStop to buy a game, do you think that that's clear enough to them?
No.
You feel like they get home and they're like, wait, what is this additional
I mean,
cost?
it will be now that this new thing is passed.
Only in California, though.
I think that most parents wouldn't know that and would have to be informed. They would have to get that information at the store because parents got a lot of shit going on, man. They got a lot of stuff to worry about.
DLC.
And like,
They're thinking about
That's
Bioshock
basically
Infinite
saying.
constantly.
Their kids going and being prostitutes. It's craziness. It's craziness for parents out there.
they got a lot going on, so they don't have time to worry about what's got an online pass and what doesn't. So it really becomes incumbent upon the store to inform them.
I bet you parents of younger children might appreciate a lack of online pass. Now they don't have to worry about their kid going on multiplayer when they're too young to be cussing at people and kicking my ass in Call of Duty.
It's more of a personal
That
thing
actually
for you.
makes my
Right.
KD ratio better if they don't go on.
I encourage my child to go on Xbox Live and curse at people and kill you.
You're a poor 4.5-year-old child.
Yeah.
Poor Dexter.
Your kid's going to be the leader of the rebellion or the reason why people are rebelling. One of the two, man. One of the two. And Jake, online passes as a whole, do we like this? Are publishers doing, outside of you have to pay for this in order to pay our game if you bought it used, but are they giving enough additional stuff for people to, are they just taking advantage of the fact that people have to buy this? I feel like publishers should be offering more some sort of extra incentive, an extra weapon or, some skins or what Prototype 2, I believe, is doing with their RadNet, where if you buy early, they have all this additional content that they couldn't quite fit in the game. But this is a cool pre-order bonus. For the first 6 weeks or 7 weeks, every week they're going to roll out different challenges and new things for people that bought the game new and early. And I think that's them going, hey, we appreciate you paying full price for this game. Do you feel like enough publishers are doing that?
I don't know. I mean, there's a really good example, and it's actually just coming up. Before, I mean, it's this weird thing. Like right now, they are just basically the online pass thing is all they've really thought through. It seems like it's like we got to do something right now. Okay, we got that in place.
Yeah.
Now we have to assess what else can we do. But I mean, you get in this situation where people are complaining about day one DLC that they have to pay for if it's not on the disc, and it's like they're in this very, very tumultuous
And it's all
area
coming back to
right
EA.
now. It really is because they're the driving. When everyone thinks about online passes, that's it. Every game is this thing that the people have to deal with. So I mean,
Well,
yeah.
I know Steve had because we shared a copy of Mass Effect 3, and so I redeemed the online pass for it, and then Steve couldn't play multiplayer. Like, how unfair is that? Especially for a game like Mass Effect 3, where they said you would have to. I mean, actual ending aside, they said
There it
you
is.
have to.
20 minutes in. Took you
I
a
was
long time
waiting.
today.
I was
Took you a long. That's
waiting.
good. Restraint is something your generation doesn't usually exercise. I
No,
appreciate
no,
that.
but here it took 30 minutes. But so you have to. They said that in order to get the best possible ending, you would have to play multiplayer. And so if you borrowed a copy, you'd have to pay an additional $10 on top of whatever you paid for to get the best possible ending.
And they built that right into the game.
And that was built into the promotion. It was more important to the marketing than it was to the actual outcome of the game.
And I think we can all agree that's bullshit, right?
I think that is
Yeah.
Okay.
Even
I think
somebody
as
who
long
likes
as-
the ending and appreciates whatever happened to them at the end of the
that
game,
is bull.
right? Thank you.
I think that the world needs more carrots and less sticks.
Spare the rod, spoil the child.
That's what I'm saying. Because
right?
if they give you a bunch of free
Antiquated
stuff, if they give you a bunch of free stuff and like extras for buying the new game and like awesome stuff, that's kind of like a carrot. That encourages you. Oh, I want to get it new.
Okay, now I see
Where
what
it's
you're
like
trying
if
to
they
say.
force you to do certain things in order to get the full experience of the game, that's kind of like a stick.
Well, I think that goes back to the idea of like the prices of games. Is that like if you could pay $40 for a game and you get all this like amazing stuff there, and the used copies maybe $5 less, you would never buy the used version. Like you would just get the new one.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
it's like,
Right.
You're
so
buying
that's going to
security.
get into like a weird thing. But the first comment that of this developer was saying like, oh, the single player experience is going to die. I think that would be an interesting model to see where if you have developers who are kind of focusing purely on story driven single player narrative games, you have your Uncharted, your Skyrims, your BioShocks, and that's a $40 game, and then they don't have to worry about multiplayer. Because one of the big things that they're complaining about is that the prices, like they have to charge as much because we're losing so much money.
Yeah.
But then they wouldn't have to incur all those costs for multiplayer. They could focus on single player. It's a $40 game, likely sell more copies. And then basically, if you want to have that multiplayer experience, you could pay, that's a $60 game. And you
Right.
get the multiplayer also, if that's
Yeah.
what you want.
I think that's what like the guys at Zombie Studios are doing with like the Blacklight franchise. A great example of saying we want a AAA first-person shooter multiplayer experience, so that's what we're going to make. We're not going to make a single-player campaign and then charge people a bunch of money so they have that option. And I think a lot of the problems we're going to see now or seeing now are going to be removed in the future by teams doing exactly what Jake said. Uncharted 4 is a single-player experience. You're going to pay $40 for that. However, we had another team that made this multiplayer experience, and if you want that, then this is the additional
Is
cost.
that also on the disc?
I
Can
think
it be
that I
unlocked?
think like I think that you buy the disc, and I think all that content's available, just like the Mass Effect DLC, the Day One DLC, which again we all kind of disagreed on, but that's a great example of content that was there and available to people if they wanted to pay the extra money. I could see. I don't know how much it costs to print a disc and press a disc, but I imagine the cost can't be so high that it's a throwaway to put multiplayer on that's not immediately available to somebody.
Especially
Right.
for getting digital distribution, you have no disc, you have no box at all.
Exactly.
There's not
But then
extra money
you don't
saved.
have online passes and then used games.
But then it becomes like which one? Like, are you paying for the multiplayer and then the single player is an add-on, or are you paying for the single player and then the multiplayer is an add-on? Maybe you split it right down the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in a perfect
could be
world,
$30,
they.
$30.
I feel like every developer and publisher should be able to name their own price when it comes to the stuff that they do. Like they should be able to set the standard. Like they know how hard they worked on it. They know how much they believe in their product. They know whether it's good or bad. I know that we sit here and we go, man, they just had no idea that their game sucked. But because every single one of you has interviewed a developer when they know they have a crappy game, and they might not present it to the public, but they know their game is crappy. Those people are only going to charge $20 for their game, for sure. They're not going to charge $60 if they don't have to. I don't think.
Because there'll be imbalance there too. Because you have Skyrim 120 hours single player game. You have another one that's 4 hours long, and they cost the same.
Yeah.
It's just that exactly.
It's like the Darkness
they should
2.
be able to
Everyone
name
says the Darkness 2 was great. Like everyone liked it, but it was still a 6-hour campaign. So
I agree.
$60?
I agree.
Do you want $60? Is that what you're reaching for?
That actually brings
Please?
up a great point, White Wolf Assassin. By the way, White Wolf Assassin, thank you for always writing in really good questions. We've used you more than once on the show, and we appreciate your input.
I wore my shirt for him.
And you wore your
for you,
shirt
White Wolf.
for
White
him.
Wolf.
Yeah.
Sweet.
That worked out well for us. That was not the plan. But White Wolf Assassin says, is it fair that digital copies of a game are priced the same as physical copies on consoles? What's the point of buying digitally other than convenience if you cannot get it at a reduced price? My thought would be, number one, buying something, the physical media as opposed to digital media storage space, maybe if you don't have enough. But now that Microsoft has like cloud and PSN has cloud, I think we're going to move away from how big your hard drive is. Everybody will have access to as much storage space as they want. So is it fair that a digital copy is the same as a physical copy of a game?
No, I mean it's not. I don't think it's taxed the same. So I guess that's fair. But no,
No? And why not?
no. I don't know, because there has to be, even if it's $4 for that plastic case, there has to be a financial difference, and that should be reflected when I download it.
Okay, so do you think it should be a $4 difference in cost, or are we looking at like $30 for a game you download or $50 for?
I think it should be it should be a small difference, but it should be there.
Right.
Make $5 fine.
Okay. I wonder if, do you think that, do publishers, I'm sure one of you has the answer to this, do publishers also, like, you got to think they have to print out, like, the stand-up that is in a GameStop, like, there's costs incurred there as well. I wonder what the actual I wonder how much it costs to put a game in a store is. Would you guys have any idea of how much?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Printing a disc, printing the materials, like the the 3-page instruction booklet that nobody wants because we know that if you put water on your Xbox when it's plugged in, it'll electrocute you. We don't need that. We don't need that warning anymore.
I gotta go.
Yeah. But I wonder how much it actually costs to put a game in stores.
That's a really good question. I don't know what the answer is. I
Yeah,
don't think
shipping
we know
costs
offhand,
like
but
no
with the
idea.
truck to the store.
it
and-
would be cool if that was reflected in the digital price. Also, the fact that when you buy a digital copy, you can't sell it back. So, like, you personally lose a little bit of money if that's your way of conducting your gaming business. But
But you also can't. I mean, on the publisher side, you can't sell it back. So they should encourage you to choose that method
by making it cheaper.
by making it
Exactly.
cheaper or convenient. Or I mean, Origin is just now admitting that they have customer service problems. Like, make your services better.
That would be a way to kind of undercut GameStop too, because if EA was just or anybody Activision was just started to charge $30 for a digital version of their game, who would go buy a box copy for $60?
I agree.
It's
that would be
really
it.
weird that it hasn't come up yet. Because I mean, how many times have you been like in front of your Xbox? You want something to play, and like, if I could just download any game, why can't I just do that?
I feel like
I
the
don't
Steam
understand.
box, because Steam is a name synonymous with efficient and for the most part reliable
Quality.
downloading ability. If somebody, but it's still associated with the PC side of things. If they give people a box to connect to their television and have the same thing, I think GameStop's going to sit back and go, us. This is not good for us at all. But do we need people like Steam to lead the charge on this, or do we? I mean,
Steam or Apple.
you think Apple?
Maybe Steam and Apple.
Oh,
as
don't say
the
that, Steve.
rumors-
It's too
Apple
much to wrap my head
The
around.
rumors have been
that's true.
saying
It's very true.
that
true.
that Valve and Apple are talking about something involved. I don't. This is totally rumors, so don't take this with anything but a grain of salt. But they're saying that they could be working on some sort of Apple Steam gaming device for Apple TVs that are not confirmed. But like, okay, is that like
That's
a killer of the
interesting.
industry? I mean, is that like? It'd be amazing, right?
It'd be amazing to see a Microsoft exclusive on there, though.
Yeah.
Wouldn't never see that.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
just, it still
true,
has to be
right?
like
I don't know how Apple could get into
There
the
would be no
gaming
way.
industry.
I
So-
don't know. There's always been rumors that they're going to, or
Yeah,
that
they
they're going
have.
to try.
I've never.
but
I
it's
know
never
Gabe has
actually
said a
come
lot
about.
about Apple and saying how what Apple does is dangerous. So that'd be very interesting if Valve actually ended up working with them.
Right. Yeah, I think it's pretty. I think it's been pretty clear that Apple's their rev sharing is also not very good. Like the reason they went to AT&T with the original iPhone was they were like, "You're going to give us a percentage of your data. You're going to give us a percentage of your plans," and people are like, "We're not going to give. That's how we make our money. We sell air to people, and that's why we're rich as." Apple's like, "Don't care. You're going to give us money
All
for all
for
these.
that air."
Yeah, we want that air." And they're like, "Okay, we'll do it." And that's why it happened. But I don't know, man. I think. That would be crazy if it did indeed happen.
If Apple made some serious move into the gaming space, I mean, because they never have. I mean, like, that's never been their priority. That's never been what their business model is, what their plan is. But
yet
if
they have the apps thing, which just makes trillions of dollars.
Yeah,
That, like,
exactly.
it's just like
But yeah,
completely,
but that's like,
completely redefined mobile gaming, like
Yeah.
just by accident.
gaming
I mean,
in
the
general.
argument could
One of those
it's true.
things,
Like,
like-
they didn't.
I mean,
right.
the argument could be made that maybe not everybody has an Apple TV in their house, but I'm pretty sure most houses have an iPad. And if there's a way to incorporate what people like, they're already in people's homes and they're watching you right now, Mom. So stop doing that with Dad.
awesome.
But they're in.
Just got
But
weird.
right, I mean, is there a way for them to already
really
to
awkward
use the like if the Wii U is something that people enjoy and want in their homes? I mean, essentially, I see the iPad pairing with the Apple TV in a way much like the Wii U will pair with the box that nobody really talks about, but that is actually part of the television.
I think the dream for that would be like you're playing, and there's some kind of it's somehow incorporated into the iPad, and then you could just leave, and you still have something connected to the game with you at all times.
Yeah.
So you're playing, and you kind of I need to leave.
It's
So
kind of like transferring.
there you go. A lot of transferring. Yep. And more made up words.
Transferring.
But yeah.
So in closing, let's just maybe toss this out there quickly, Nicole. Who do you think is doing it right now? What company out there do you feel is really doing right by the consumer and themselves in this whole thing?
Epic Games. I think that there's not really an online pass right now, so that's number one. One of this, but more importantly, they have constant and steady support for downloadable content, for single player, for multiplayer, for Horde, for everything that people enjoy. They're continually releasing content, and they're continually giving people a reason to keep playing their game and not go sell it. And that's exactly what developers and publishers should be doing, is that they should give people a reason to want to play their game, not a reason that they should be afraid to sell it and buy a new one.
Good point. Well done. Yeah, like Patton over there. What about you, Steve?
Mojang, for creating Minecraft and then giving it to people to play for a very small fee during its alpha production phase and gradually rolling out all of these updates before it even went to a full version, because that's how you get people to play your game if your game is super awesome. And
they have brand loyalty forever now because they were so.
It looks like they're going to be doing the
fans.
same thing with their new game,
With the
which
space
seems
game,
incredibly complicated and way too smart for me. But it seems like they're like, we're going to do the exact same thing we did with Minecraft.
I have a feeling that I'll play it and go, why can't I just punch trees and get wood? I don't get it.
I don't
I got a spaceship. Why can't I blow up? It makes no sense to me. Reapers. Jake, what about you?
I mean, I think people are still playing Call of Duty. They're still using Elite. I would imagine that model's still working out
sure.
well for them, and they're still making lots of money. People are playing it, so that model's probably working out pretty well for them. I think maybe Bethesda, maybe with Skyrim, at least on the PC, mods and updates, and now with Kinect, the updates that are coming for the 360 and stuff, like they seem to be working constantly on that side. So, and now in Prototype 2 is a pretty good.
I like the League of Legends folks. Because I feel like they're developing their game based on what people want, and that's how they're making money. Because they're like, if enough people want this wizard hat, we'll give them a wizard hat and charge them for it, and we know they'll pay because they asked for it.
I think funny
That's
hats.
so
I think
smart.
paying for
Funny hats are a pretty good deal.
It's been tested. It's been true.
Well, we talked to the guy.
Fortress.
We talked to him at at PAX, and they have 2 new champion classes they're debuting this year, and both of them were essentially like cloud developed by their fans.
Were they awesome?
They were pretty cool. I'm not the biggest League of Legends fans, but I can see. I don't know how they fit into the gameplay, but I will say, just from an outside point of view, I was like, that's cool and that's cool. I don't know how it works within the game, but I know most of it was developed listening to the fans, and I feel like you're always going to have brand loyalty if you let your fans, talk you through some of the things they like in your game, and they continue to support this game that that everybody loves. So that's just my 2 cents. As always, thank you guys so much for being here. Steve's kid, we're so sorry.
Very
Your dad is
sorry,
a terrible
Dexter.
human being,
So
and there's
sorry,
pretty
Dexter.
much no way
Sorry,
you're going to
son.
end up okay. That's the breaks. You guys can check out new episodes of Feedback every Wednesday at g4tv.com/feedback. Just a bad father.
Steve Johnson, bad father.